If you think about the C corporations in this country, a lot has happened in the last 40 years, especially when it comes to regulations at the state level. The thing is that C corporations back in the days were actually were a federal of a federal construct. Okay, but what happens here is in the last 40 years, since you had more legal structures coming to the market, like LLCs, S corporations, a lot of states wanted to really reclaim their authority, quote unquote authority. Okay, but before I talk to you about what happens in the last 4 decades when it comes to C corporations, let me first define for you. I'm pretty sure you know already, but I just want to define for those of us who have no idea what a C corporation is, what this type of legal structure really is. Okay, so if you think about a C corporation, very simple. You are talking about. I mean, a lot of folks talk about double taxation, but it's way more than that. This is a type of business entity formed under a state law that establishes the business as distinct from its owners, okay, or shareholders. So what happens here is that as a C corporation, the business earns money and pays taxes at corporate rates, okay. But the shareholders are also liable for paying taxes on their investments. So basically, that's the whole idea of double taxation. In other words, the corporation is paying taxes at the corporate income level, but if the corporation issues dividends, then shareholders are also liable for the income taxes. So you have a double taxation there, okay, which you don't have with all the other corporate structures such as S corporation or LLC. So if you think about a C corporation, a lot has not changed in the last 40 years when it comes to key attributes because a C corporation remains a separate legal entity. You have limited liability. You also have double taxation. I've said that before. You have the shareholder structure that's way more interesting than that of an S corporation, for instance, because you have no restriction on the number of shareholders, but also no restriction on the nationality. You can have foreign investors actually being shareholders in a C corporation, but something you cannot have in an S corporation. You have perpetual existence, and you also have a pretty flexible management structure. One thing I have seen in the last 40 years when it comes to C corporation is that basically you have seen an increase when it comes to the liability protection. So if you're a shareholder, like back in the days, like 30 years ago or even 40 years ago, basically you didn't have that much liability protection because there was a loophole in the law that actually Congress fixed that loophole ever since. But there was a loophole whereby you could be actually liable when it comes to your personal assets. Nowadays, that thing is totally gone. Like, okay, if you are an investor, if you are an executive, if you are an owner in a C corporation, you do have limited liability protection. So that's really a big advantage, okay, over let's say a sole proprietorship, for instance, okay. You also have the growth potential through stock issuance. That's something I have seen in the last 40 years a lot. Basically, what happens here is that if you're in C corporation in this country, you can actually issue stock like in a very unlimited way. Nowadays, that you have the emergence of global investors. You have someone can be in China investing in a C corporation in the states. Somebody can be in Acapulco or Nigeria or Brazil or Bali or whatever. You know that person can really invest in a C corporation in a C corporation incorporated in New York, for instance. Okay, so you do have an increasing let's say you do have increased potential when it comes to stock issuance. There are no shareholder restrictions. I think I've said this before. So that's something that hasn't changed in the last 40 years. Okay, Congress has made sure that there are no restrictions when it comes to the nature and type of shareholders you have when it comes to a C corporation. And also, you are able to attract talent with stock options. So if you really, and this is something that has changed. Back in the days, it wasn't really that flexible. But nowadays, again, authorities have changed the law to make sure that C corporations can attract talent through stock options. The perpetual existence hasn't changed. And also, there is some tax flexibility with retained earnings. Okay, that's one thing that Congress is still working on, by the way. Okay, and but the cool thing is that nowadays, if you want to have a C corporation, you have the possibility to actually you can choose to retain earnings as opposed to reinvest, as opposed to distributing them as dividends. So if you retain them, then you don't have to pay taxes on them. Okay, that's really, I mean, you pay taxes on the income, but not on the dividends. So when it comes to C corporations in the last 40 years, the way you form a C corporation has changed a lot. Back in the days, you had to really go to a specialist. You had to go to a lawyer. You had to go to a CPA. You have to go to someone who has some knowledge about the whole C corporation thing. Okay, somebody who, like a connoisseur. A connoisseur. You got to have someone who understands the subtleties of C corporation nowadays, and that's a good thing. Nowadays, you have something called legal tech. So that's legal technology, legal tech companies. And what happens is that you have companies such as Zen Business or LegalZoom or BZ, for instance, among others. Okay, there are lots of them. They allow you to actually form a C corporation online. You can form a C corporation. You can form an S corporation. You can form an LLC. You can form an LLP. Whatever you want to form, they will allow you to actually form the corporations online. So that has been a big shift in the last 4 decades that I have seen, I have witnessed. Okay, and this is something that's really good because it just means that you don't have to have hundreds of thousands or even thousands of dollars before setting up a C corporation with less than $100 or in some cases $200 or $300, you can set up a C corporation. So that's kind of cool. I mean, that's really good because it really sort of democratizes the whole access to C corporation. Okay, and but the rules have not really changed that much. It's just the process that has changed nowadays. So when I speak about the rules haven't changed, you still have to choose a business name. If you want to form a C corporation this year, you still have to choose a business name. Okay, you got to really select the state of incorporation because see, the thing is, even though C corporations are somehow regulated at the federal level, they still are rooted in state regulations. In other words, you are formed in one state, and then you are actually regulated based on your niche, based on your economic sector at the federal level. Okay, so you have to choose your state of incorporation, and if you want to really be incorporated in multiple states, you got to have a primary state, and then you got to have like you got to be a foreign entity in other states. You got to have secondary states. Okay, you also have to designate a registered agent. Back in the days, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, basically it was kind of cumbersome to designate a registered agent. I mean, back in the days, the authorities didn't want to really allow companies to outsource the registered agent sort of function, but they have seen that it's just a lot easier for companies to really do so. So nowadays, you can designate a registered agent, and you can file articles of incorporation, everything online. You can outsource the whole thing, by the way. So one thing you have to do also when it comes to forming a C corporation is actually pay attention to corporate bylaws. Okay, but again, the cool thing is that nowadays you don't have to really spend you don't have to spend thousands of dollars going to a lawyer to ask him or her to draft for you corporate bylaws. You have if you go online, it's amazing how many templates you have about corporate bylaws, okay, for C corporation. So you can just pick one and really adjust the content a little bit to make sure that it fits your specific purpose. And that's kind of cool because then you have the ability to know exactly whether or not the bylaws that you have actually are good for you. Then you want to appoint directors, okay? You have to also conduct an organizational meeting. It's one of those things where, I mean, what I'm telling you, those are routine. Those are routine processes that happen if you have a C corporation. That hasn't changed a lot. It hasn't changed at all in the last 40 years. You still have them. What has changed, again, going back to what I said, what has changed really is the process. Nowadays, everything I'm telling you here, you can automate it somehow. You can really outsource it and you can automate it. You have somebody actually taking care of it for you. Okay. So, for instance, when I speak about an organizational meeting, it's one of those things where the initial meeting actually will serve as a launch pad for the corporation's activities. Okay, because if you say you have a C corporation, authorities want to make sure that you are for real, and the way you are for real, the way you show them you are for real is by having a preliminary organizational meeting. Okay, so this is the meeting whereby the directors adopt the previously drafted bylaws, appoint corporate officers to manage the daily operations, and address other relevant startup matters while keeping detailed minutes of the meeting. Okay, and you also have to issue stock. So again, this part of the process actually has been automated nowadays. You can really you have third parties who that will take care of that aspect of things for you, and you also need to apply for licenses and permits. That hasn't changed a lot. You still need to do them as you had to do them back in the days anyway. What has changed in the last 40 years when it comes to C corporation is that nowadays you have to register for state taxes. I think as I said to you at the beginning that the states wanted to reclaim some authority when it comes to a C corporation. Okay, so part of that authority had to do with fiscal authority, the ability to levy taxes, the ability to ask corporations to pay taxes. So what happens is that if you have a C corporation, for instance, go back to the example I took a little earlier when I said a C corporation in New York. If you are incorporated in New York, you still have to pay a federal income taxes, but also state income taxes. Okay, so among other things, by the way. So you gotta really register for state taxes for authorities to really know what's really happening with your business. You also gotta obtain an employer identification number. So back in the days, the EIN wasn't really mandatory, but the IRS just realized that it was just a lot easier to track corporate income taxes through that number because the EIN is an equivalent of a company's social security number. Okay, that's just a great way for the authorities to know what's really happening and who's paying taxes and who's not. And nowadays, authorities want you to really open also a business bank account. Back in the days, they were more flexible, okay? But nowadays, you can't have a C corporation without having a business bank account. You got to have a business bank account, and part of it is that the authority just wants to make sure that you do have a legit business, right? Because the whole thing is for authorities to ascribe onto your business, let's say a separation of a liability. Okay, then they have to make sure that you do have a business, a legit business, and also you have to stay compliant. Compliance has been key all over the years. Okay, so and that's something that hasn't changed a lot. And if you wanted to now, the only difference is that you are able to stay compliant actually remotely. You don't have to file paperwork. You don't have to really just mail paperwork once a year or whatever. No, you can just stay compliant actually through your registered agent or through a third party service. So other information that I have seen in the last 40 years when it comes to C corporation is that basically you have seen the emergence of Delaware as a launch pad for several C corporations. I mean, because Delaware, the authorities in Delaware have actually shifted their strategy. Some people call it investment model. Some people call it investment genius. But whatever it is, okay, Delaware has really risen at the top of the main destination for C corporations who want to the C corporation that want to really incorporate in this country, simply because the laws in their states are quote unquote investor friendly. They are corporation friendly. It's just a lot easier to incorporate there. It's faster too. Okay, that's an important element. For instance, they have an expedited 24-hour processing service at the states. Okay, at the state level. So that's kind of cool. And also, you are able to have your registered agent service actually chosen within a day. That's really fantastic. You're also able to get an EIN. So if you actually register in Delaware, you can get your EIN the same within 2 hours, which is really fast for a C corporation. Usually, An EIN will take somewhere from 3 to 6 hours if you file online. But if you file offline, if you really file the form SS4, which is the paper version of the EIN, this will take probably 2 to 6 weeks. Okay, but that's why it's always better if you have a C corporation, file online, and then you have your EIN right away. And you also have the ability to actually purchase, at least you have investors purchase shares in your company, in your C corporation. There are services nowadays that actually make that happen, which is a big shift back in the days. I mean, compared to back in the days, like I said, nowadays you have global investors. You have folks who are rich in, let's say, in Dubai, folks who are rich in Brazil, folks who are rich in Indonesia, folks who are rich in Frankfurt, Germany, and who just want to invest in other places, like not in their original country. So you have the ability to actually have someone actually buy shares in your American C corporation. By the way, so that's really fantastic. That's really fantastic. It really once again democratizes the whole investor investing process. One thing I have seen in the last 40 years, and that this is a really major. There wasn't actually that wasn't that requirement 40 years ago. Okay, actually, Congress introduced that about 20 to 22 years ago. So basically, there's something called 83B tax election, and it's one of those things where basically you are able to really file you're able to elect a certain status to save money. So many startup founders choose to file an 83B tax election to potentially save on future personal taxes. Okay, so what happens here is that you have to file that, and you have to ship it through. You have to ship the paperwork through USPS certified mail with tracking. Okay, that way you can really get a copy of your signed 83B election and proof of filing. Okay, that's an important element because you are able to get things done faster. It's all about taxes. It's all about fiscal optimization. Everything I'm telling you is actually legal. Okay, you didn't have that 40 years ago. One thing I want to say also is that again, if you wanna file a C corporation this year, based on my knowledge of the last 40 years, what I've seen, it's just better to enlist a service, enlist a company that does that, and just pay them to get the job done. Because you could do it yourself, but it will take some time, and sometimes it's just better to ask yourself: should I be running my company? Should I be looking for customers? Should I be setting things up, or should I just be quote unquote wasting my time in administrative shenanigans? Okay, so it's all about understanding that your time is valuable, your time is priceless, and you have to know how to really how to better spend your time. Okay, so it's just better to really outsource the whole thing that you can, if you can, from from C corporation formation all the way to registered agent service. Okay, everything in between also. In conclusion to this conversation, I shared with you 40 years of C corporation knowledge. Okay, and I went through what I've seen changing throughout the years. Thank you so much. God bless you. I will see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.